Welcome to Drinks Coach. I know the sound isn't quite as perfect. It's never been that perfect, but it doesn't sound quite like it normally does. I need to buy a dongle for my professional microphone, so we're just going to wing it with my new iPhone 15 microphone, which sounds much better than the old one. Hopefully you can hear this okay. It's not too echoey. John Michael Wright painted that. Born 1617 through the 17th century. Painted that very famous, very dramatic full-length portrait of Charles I. Yes, beautiful picture. I thought it would add some culture and gravitas to this room. Julie has a lovely oak table, and we're full of Delft ware and blue and white and all sorts of nice things. Beautiful garden outside. So yes, I thought I'd take the advantage of the environment that I'm in to do an episode again. What's this episode about? Oh yeah, first of all, please do subscribe and hit that bell button so that we give you notifications of new shows coming up. I promise I won't let you down anymore, but it's been over a year since the last series. I did 165 shows during lockdown. I think I burnt out a little bit, and because I'm not doing it for money, I just had to stop to earn a few bob. So maybe this is something which I could turn into part of my income, but it's very important to me that we keep it straight and that it's my own opinion on this channel. So if anybody fancies sponsoring, straplining my show, I'd be very, very interested in hearing from you. But I'm going to be careful not to do too many, if any, shows where people pay me to put their wines on the show, because that's not what this is for. That's what influencers are for. This isn't supposed to be advertising. This is supposed to be me offering my advice to no one in particular, and hopefully entertaining people for a few minutes. Today we are going to do Beaujolais. I know I did a couple of Beaujolais shows over the 2 years I ran the show before. I love Beaujolais, and Beaujolais gave me a bit of work about 2 years ago, so I think that's one of the reasons why I did it. But they're not giving me any work now. However, Sopexa UK, the PR and community comms company that look after quite a lot of the wine regions of France, asked me if I wanted to have 3 bottles of Juliénas sent to me. And I didn't think twice. I said, yes, please. I promise I'll do a drinks coach on them. So here I am, guys, doing it. Juliénas is one of the 10 crus of Beaujolais. What's Beaujolais? Well, Beaujolais is sort of southeast of France. It's wine made from a grape variety called Gamay, but more importantly, it's grown on incredibly, what I would call explicit soils that really come through in the wine. A lot of granite, ancient soils. Some of the soils as old as 450 million years old. Nice, that's GNEISS soils. Rose schist, pierre bleu, which is very rare soil indeed, very dense blue granite. And there are only 1 or 2 appellations, even in the 10 famous regions within Beaujolais, that have Pierre Bleu. Juliénas is one of them. And it's something that draws me to this wine, because those flavours of rose schist and Pierre Bleu in the wine, all those textures, those minerals, give the wine a precision and a smokiness and a tightness and a complexity, which I find very exciting. The wines are energised. They're almost like they've got batteries in them. They've got Jedi midichlorians pulsing through their blood. So there are 10 famous districts within Beaujolais. You've got Beaujolais regular, Beaujolais reg, standard, hashtag. Then you've got Beaujolais village, which comes from a series of different villages. Some of those villages will actually be named on the label and may well be heir apparent potentially in the future to becoming crus in their own rights. Things like Regny used to be Beaujolais village Regny. No, it's Regny. And there's one which is very, very good, which I think is probably due an upgrade, called Lantignier, and that probably will become a cru at some point. I hope it does, because the wines are really pretty. Again, Pierre Bleu in Lantignier, so it's hallowed ground. Why the hell they haven't given it some credit already, I don't know. But you've got 10 crus. I'm actually reading them off because when you do a show like this, it's like answering questions on a quiz on TV. You suddenly become a bit of a retard, and I don't really want to forget any of them. So right at the top, you've got Saint-Amour. Saint-Amour was my favourite. My father's favourite cru. They often talk about the Saint-Amour wine smelling of peaches. It's something that comes up, but actually when you mention that and you smell the wine, you go, yeah, it is kind of peachy. But it has a beautiful light floral freshness. Then we're in Juliénas, which is just south of that. on some very special soils, and it's quite high up. There are some quite high peaks in the centre of the hills of Beaujolais. Juliénas is one of the highest. And they've got Chenin next. That's pretty high. And then out Crop-Lier to the east, and actually overlapping with the south of Burgundy, you've got Moulin-Avant, where they say the longest lived wines of Beaujolais come from. And I'm not sure why that is, because it doesn't have grand soils. It has more traditional winemaking soils, sure, but they also age those wines in oak, so the wines are going to get aged for longer. And I'm not sure how much of that, of the wines aging long, is because they age long naturally and you have to wait for them, and how much of it is winemakers put them in barrels and giving them a good old Burgundian winemaker shake-up to make the wines live longer. I think the complexities of the other crus carry, to me, much more excitement, because you've got those mineral touches and those floral touches, which, largely speaking, I don't think Moulin-Avant has. But Moulin-Avant, or Windmill, as it's known, does have some very expensive and some very fine wines indeed. I'm not knocking them, I just think maybe they're a bit overrated compared to the incredible value you can get elsewhere. Then south of Moulin-Avant, you've got the largest cru of all, and it's the one that people have heard most, which is Fleury. If you've ever bought a bottle of Fleury at lunch or in a restaurant at dinner, very light, very fragrant, very easy drinking wines. You may not have even known it was a Beaujolais, but Fleury is kind of a tip-top Beaujolais. It's about twice the size of the other crus. Then you've got Chirouble, which I think is, again, a Beaujolais cru, which is good for wine lovers, wine enthusiasts and wine nerds, and hipsters alike. Hipsters love Beaujolais. Chirouble has a lot more of the minerality, a little austere sometimes. Again, quite a very high altitude plot. I think about the highest point, Chirouble, I think. Or was it Chenin? One of the two, within the hills of Beaujolais. I think Juliénas is Chirouble with bells on. If I can't find Juliénas, then I'll often try Chirouble, because I think the complexity is very interesting, especially when you have it with food. It's a real talking point wine, very complex. South of that is the one, I think, which most people go for, which is both a real showpiece, delicious wine with huge amounts of fruit ripeness, has huge, wonderful exposure to the sun, but also can age for a very long time, particularly wines from certain plots called Côte de Pie, and that is Morgon. Morgon is now a collectible wine. I mean, people that know these wines can keep for 20 years, where traditionally the wisdom was 2 to 3 years before you drink them, but they keep for a very long time. So there's Morgon under that, and then you've got Régny, which is very different. It's in a kind of a gap between the mountains, created by some extraordinary glacial action hundreds of millions of years ago, created this kind of what is basically a lake bed. Then you've got south of that, you've got the wines of Brouilly. Brouilly is the wines on top of the hill of Brouilly, which are delicious, relatively simple, I think, but really have lots of flavour. Some of the best producers, I'm talking about Tivin here, managed to elevate that to something else. But the vineyards around Brouilly, around the skirt of the hill, are called Côte de Brouilly. So Brouilly on the top and the vineyards around the bottom are separated because they are very distinctly different wines, and wines that they feel they get much more benefit out of selling separately than blending together and maybe muddling the two styles. So just to recap, the 10 crus are Saint-Amour, Juliénas, Chenin, Moulin-Avant, Fleury, Chirouble, Morgon, Régny, Côte de Brouilly and Brouilly. Bosh. And below that you have the wines of Les Terres Dorées, or the golden soils. And the golden soils that produce really amazing, inexpensive, delicious Chardonnay. Beaujolais Blanc is hugely underrated, although the prices are going up very quickly at the moment. And Beaujolais Village, some of the best Beaujolais Village comes from there. There's a producer called Jean-Paul Brun, which you can buy from the Wine Society. Go online and look him up, who makes fantastic ancient old vine Beaujolais and Beaujolais Villages from this region. So that's basically Beaujolais in a nutshell, although it's kind of a long, thin nutshell. There you go. So what we've got here, we've got 3 Juliénas. So this is about Juliénas, not any other different crus. Maybe I'll do a show on Morgon one day, maybe I'll do a show on something else, I don't know. But these are 3 wines which all come from the same appellation. On paper at least, they all have the same pay grade, they're the same level of quality, but they've been singled out for coming from this particularly special region, Juliénas. I'm in good company thinking Juliénas is my favourite cru, because it was Napoleon's favourite cru as well, and despite being short and a bit dangerous, he did have a bit of a palate, and his favourite meal was to have poulet de Bresse, which is the chicken that's reared in the far west part of the Loire, of Brittany, sorry, and you can pay up to 50 quid. It's only 40 quid for a breast chicken, the most expensive chicken in the world. But they are the best tasting chicken, and no one can actually convince me otherwise. But if you want to have a special chicken, really special, I'd rather have a poulet de breast, honestly, than turkey at Christmas, but don't tell the in-laws that. Napoleon, after a war, would have roast chips in duck fat. He would have a poulet de breast, and he would drink Romanée Conti, which is the world's most expensive wine with it. But if his Romanée Conti wasn't available, these days you're looking at £15,000 a bottle for it, he would drink Juliénas. That was his second choice at between £15 and £25. So I think that's far the better choice of the two in terms of value for money. Sell your Mercedes or 20 odd quid. So anyway, we've got 3 Juliénas here. Price points, first one's about 15 quid, I think, and it's from Majestic, and it's called Juliénas Les Mouilles. Mouille, M-O-U-I-L-L-E-S. Well, mouille means damp, so I imagine it means the marshes or something. I should have checked that before, but I'm speaking enough French to think that it must be something related to that. It must be dampness of some sort of the marshes. But there can't be many marshes in Juliénas. It's quite high up a hill. So there we've got the first one. That's a 2022 ready to drink. We have a wine from, and I thought it'd be very nice to include this, one of the most prestigious, most famous names in Beaujolais, a man that I think up until recently was making about half of all of Beaujolais, which is Georges Duboeuf. You may have come across it. His labels on the shelf are all very, very colourful and pretty, lots of flowers and stuff on them. But he's tidied himself up, made the cruise look a bit more serious, I think. But he makes very good wine. But there was a criticism that he was almost the only Beaujolais producer that would ship to the UK that you could buy anywhere. And that all the wines tasted the same because he imposed his winemaking style on the wines. Well, yeah, maybe. I mean, everyone does. But if he is selling all this stuff, and without Beaujolais, I don't know where they would be without him because he sold so much of it. He must have had something to do with keeping what was and has been a very, very poor wine region alive. But that's his Juliénas. It's called Chef de Capitaine, or Capitan, Captain. And then at the end, that's 2022, the first one, 2021, the second. The next one's 2017, which is, they say you should keep the wines for about sort of for 2 to 3 years, if not a bit longer, and I think a bit longer. And this is from the Matre family. I think it's 5th generation winemaking here. They're imported by Alpine Wines, very great importer of really cool, unusual wines from Hungary and from Switzerland, and you know, they've got a really wonderful, well-chosen and funky list of fringe alternative wines from your regulars. And they bring in Matre. Matre is a family which I don't think are based in Juliénas. They actually make wines from different crus, but they do have a plot of old vine, over 65-year-old Juliénas Pied or vines, which is a 2017, which should be fun to try at the end, and it may be made in a more traditional manner to give it more tannin for aging. But I've not tried that yet, so I'm looking forward to it. Okay, so we start off with this. This is Pardon, Effis, Pardon. This is the Juliénas currently being sold at Marks in Majestic. Actually, I have a price here, I think. So look here. Yes, we do. $14.99. There we are, $14.99. Does that make it? Has it got a special mix 6 price? I don't know. It appears. Oh yes, mix 6. If you buy a box of 6 or a mix of 6 bottles, it comes down to $12.99, which is very fair indeed, I think. If you look at the wine, it's quite pale in colour. Gamay is not a dark grape variety. But remember, these vines have been grown on very, very granitic soil with all sorts of complex different stones. And often the vines are really quite old anyway, because of lack of them being tended by quite poor winemakers who weren't selling their wine for enough money. So they couldn't really afford to go out and tend the vineyards that often without not making a profit. So, this wine smells like Beaujolais with bells on. That's what you want from a cru. It's got a beautiful, sweet cherry and red currant smell to it. Almost mouth-watering. Is it better? Because when you taste the Juliénas, you really want it to be better than a Beaujolais Village. And there are some very good Beaujolais Village out there. Look at Monsieur Sunier's wines. There are wines that punch way above their weight, but you want this wine to have some Juliénas DNA to make it worth putting in a bottle with Juliénas on the label, rather than just selling it as an old vine Beaujolais Village. Yes, there is some stoniness underneath it. maybe it will manifest itself more on the palate. It's very nice. It has the raciness and the stoniness of Juliénas. It doesn't quite have the intensity and power of the best examples though. But then again, this is the cheapest and youngest of the three. And you're probably getting what you pay for. $12.99, perfectly acceptable. I wouldn't have a complaint about that whatsoever. When we go on to the next wine, we're already paying an extra tenner. So this is a wine, as I said, it's available from lots of different small independents. People like Oakham sellers sell it, Fareham sellers. This wine's about £20. It's from Georges de Boeuf. This is the 2021, which I remember was a lovely vintage. The wine is a bit darker in colour than the last one, so we're expecting a bit more oomph to the wine. What would I drink Beaujolais? Eat Beaujolais. Drink Beaujolais with. That was what I was looking for. I think it's the best wine, with the possible exception of Chianti and Sangiovese. I think it's the best wine in the world with like a piece of steak or meat. It just, you don't need big, powerful red wines because the taste of beef is delicate. If you just cooked a rare sirloin and chopped it up with a bit of sea salt on it, kosher salt for you Americans out there, then this one is just magnificent with that. A little salad, a big slab of protein, just magnificent. And I think it's the acidity that works very well. It lifts the dish. Like it with sausages as well. Lovely with some fatty fish. Let's talk about salmon collar, something like that. There is a de Boeuf signature to this wine. Not in a bad way. It's picked late, so you can taste this raisiny richness to the wine. It was a quite warm vintage. It's more dense. Around the teeth, you can feel that the stones, those hard stones, are starting to manifest with a bit more obviousness. We'll go back to the first one again. Yeah, it's a little on the lighter side, but still perfectly lovely. You would serve these wines, I think Beaujolais typically is served chilled, but you wouldn't serve these wines that chilled because some of these wines are quite big, so a few degrees off. Pull the cork, stick it in the fridge for 10 minutes, just take the edge off it so it's not over warm, otherwise these wines just taste like soup. But these wines have got some body to them, that's for sure. Let's look at the alcohol levels. 13.5% for the first one. I imagine it's the same for the second. Oh, it's 13, so it's slightly lower for this one. Let's go on to the 2017 Vieille Vigne. We've seen that name again at the bottom of the label. You can see Domaine Matre Vieille Vigne, old wines. This wine's now beautifully 6 years old, so I'm quite excited about this. It's almost showing no signs of aging. When you look at it compared to the others, there's no bricking around the rim. There's no what we call rim versus core graduation. The colour looks very uniform through the wine. So certainly if I got poured this, I would say, ooh, what was that, 2020, 2019? Would never have said 2017. 17 was a small vintage, I think partly due to the frost in the early periods, but it produced wines with good acidity, but really high concentration in some cases. Let's try this. Oh. When I say concentration, it smells like it's been weaponized. It's almost like it's been concentrated down somehow. When you smell that wine, beautiful smells of blueberry, bramble, nice bit of spice, nothing too cinnamony or anything, nothing that gaudy. Maybe a bit of coriander spice in there. Oh, it's, despite the fact this wine hasn't probably gone through what most Beaujolais go through, which is carbonic maceration, where they don't press the grapes, they just ferment them a whole bunch until they burst. This wine feels like it's got more traditional winemaking technique in it. This is sublimely silky. It's got a wonderful silky creaminess, loads of weight of fruit on the palate without being heavy alcohol-wise. Again, 13% alcohol. Could easily be more than that. A vintage like 2020 would probably be 14. That's delicious. Alpine wines, same price as this. I think it's about £22, £21. I know which one I'd drink, but that is an absolutely stunning wine for 20 quid. And if you wanted to spend £21 anywhere north of that in Burgundy, the best chance you probably get is to get a nice Haute Côte de Beaune or a satellite wine from Savigny-les-Beaunes. I would put this up against any wine you could at that price. This is delicious. There's still something quite Burgundian about it. Although technically we're in the Rhone here, in the Rhone Alp. There's an almost Rhone-y Côte de Luberon, Côte de Renvelage sort of deal going on here. But that wine's absolutely delicious. And this is absolutely why I think Juliénas is one of the great wines of Beaujolais. The wine's developed relatively quickly, so you don't have to hang around. If you drink wine at 1 year old, it's sort of quite closed and interesting and latent. It's still a lovely drink. After 3 years, it's just totally different exercise. When it's 7 years old, it's completely in the middle of its drinking window, and it's good for another 3 or 4 years, getting more and more complex. But you don't have to keep them for 20. There you go. I wonder what's going to be on the next show. Haven't decided yet. See you next time.